Hello there. Good afternoon. How are we all? Okay. Let's see. There's a couple of you with us, I think, which is good. I'll just wait to see who else joins us. Hopefully you can hear me okay and see me okay. Hi, Rebecca. How are you? Looks like you've changed your name, Rebecca. I can tell it's you by your picture, though. Oh, who else do we have? Hi, Debbie. How are you? Hopefully you can hear me okay. Hi, Jean. Nice to have you here. Nice to be back live with you again this week. Hi, Mum. How are you? And we've got Lynn as well, loud and clear. Oh, thank you, Lynn. That's really nice to know. I don't want to go too far into the live without knowing that people can see me or hear me. Hear me is the important thing. And obviously see when I'm doing the demos, of course, but I can see that I'm online. So lovely to have you all here. Oh, good. We've got a few of you here now. Thanks for coming back to me again this week. Hope you enjoyed the little video I put out to you last week. It wasn't live, but I'd managed to record it for you. And I was chatting away. I can't remember what I used now. I think I was using this set, wasn't I, if I remember right? The Floral Wishes set. I think it was the first time that I'd had a play with it. So I will be using it again today. I will hopefully be getting to use some of the Muse Maker stamps as well. But the whole thing for today is to actually do some embossing with you. So I've come up with a couple of different ideas to use the embossing. So this, hopefully I'll get onto this one a little later. So this is the Muse Maker stamps with the Muse Maker inspired embossing powders as well. But I have all three sets because, well, why not? And actually, although it was a rather long trip just to get these, I did bring these home with me from my trip away last week. So it's nice that I've got all of these for you as well. So I just wanted to come up with a couple of different ideas and just to show you how you can start using your embossing powders in your project. So obviously the list is endless and exhaustive, and you'll come up with ideas that I haven't come up with. So if you share them in the group, then that would be lovely for us all to see as well. But so we've sort of, I've got a, hopefully I'll get onto this one. You can see this one here if I just turn this, that we have some embossed elements. Let me turn you to the other camera. This one you can see. So you can see here that the background here is like a water background, and this is stamped. Then we have the dots here which are partially embossed. You can see they're in gold, and then you can see the plant here is embossed as well. So that's quite a freeing let's just play sort of project. This one that I'm doing here is a lot more structured, and every element, I've not stuck this one down because I couldn't make up my mind as to how I wanted to have this arranged. So you could have it arranged like this. You can have it arranged as I originally put in the, as I originally had it there, or you can swap this around and move that across there. Let's say the arrangement of the card isn't necessarily important, but what I wanted to show you is that every element of this card is actually embossed. If I show you this here, this is embossed. It's a bit tricky to show you, but you can, there we go, you can just about see that here. You can see these rosebuds are actually embossed. They're embossed in clear embossing powder, and I've used the resist technique for this background. So I've used the embossing powder on there. Then I went on to create this floral element also from the Floral Wishes. So I've stamped it, and then I've used the layering stencils to colour it. and you can see there that this is also embossed. The center part is embossed and die cut and decoupaged onto there, but I'm just trying to show you the details of the flower here, the actual line work, that is embossed as well. But I think that's, there we go, you can see that now. That centre part was taking preference on the camera, but you can see the line work here is actually embossed as well. That was using the rose gold, which is such a pretty colour. So I'll show you how to do this. Then this section here is just a matte layer. This is also embossed over the same colourways that I've done the background, so you can keep everything in colour coordinated, so you can create your own shiny backgrounds or mattes and layers if you wanted to do that. And then obviously you can see here that the sentiment is embossed as well. So everything is embossed. There's lots of techniques going on here, so this shows you all of those techniques for you to get you started. Let me put you on this big camera now. Okay, so let's get going. I'm also using actually the 3 colours here. So the Rhubarb Jam, Early Sunrise and Anthracite. So it's a really nice mix of colours, really vibrant with the Rhubarb Jam, but you can sort of tone that down, as you can see here, or you can have it as a real dark, beautiful colour. And then the Early Sunrise goes really lovely with that too. This is stamped with the Anthracite as well, actually. The other card is using those 3 colours too. I have all 3 sets of the embossing powders. So we have the Warm Metallics trio, which is the rose gold, the radiant gold, and the buffed copper. Let me move you onto this camera here because it's a little bit closer. There we go. So if I just turn that over, then you can see the difference in the 3 shades. So you have the rose gold, radiant gold, and the buffed copper. So you have lots of lovely different shades there. So that's the Warm Metallics trio. The fundamental trio, if you're going to ever start on embossing and it's new to you and you don't want to invest in all 3 sets at this stage, I would say go with the fundamental trio, because you will always need these 3 powders in your stash. Colours come in and out of favour, fashion. Sometimes you want to use a coloured one, sometimes you don't, but you will always reach for the clear gloss, which is this one. You will always reach for the stunning white. Now they do look very similar. You'll actually see that in real life when you get these 2 powders together, the white is slightly coarser and the clear is a lot finer. So I would say this one looks like salt, the clear looks like salt, and the stunning white looks like flour. But when you are using these, obviously they're going to be so hard to mix, really easy to mix up. Just check the front to make sure that you get what you want. And then the other one that you need is the silver. The silver is always lovely. So that is a really nice set. The Muse Maker trio, that is another 3 colours. So we have the Verdigris, so which is a mix of 2 colours, and I will do other demos with this on other videos as well, because this one, along with the Embered Rust, are quite different in composition, but so much fun to play with. And then you have the Shadow Black as well, which is another must, particularly for stamping sentiments. So that's those 3 sets. I'm going to be mixing and matching between them all today and over other weeks while I'm doing videos as well. So let's get started. So I'm going to do this one. Hazel's probably barking at the cows out the back. The cows, now that the weather's fine, the farmers put the cows out this time of year, and I think she forgets what they look like from year to year, so she's not overly sure on them at this stage. By the end of the summer, she'll be more than happy with them. Okay, so the resist technique with the clear embossing gives you this lovely, lovely background that you can see here with the rosebuds. For this, I'm using the stamp set, the Floral Wishes stamp set, and I used the small bud there, but I think I might use a larger stamp this time round. What you need to do to start with is decide on your base, because the colour that you have seen through here is white, because I stamped this onto the white cardstock. What I think I might do, just to add a little bit of difference this time around, I'm going to come in with a little bit of early sunrise, and you'll see why in a second. And I am literally just going to add areas. Now this is going to look a little bit odd, but and totally not how I would start blending on a page. But you'll see why in a second. So I'm doing this one slightly different to this, to say what I done initially, but this will hopefully sort of show you the technique. I don't know what Hazel's saying. She shall quieten down in a moment, but hopefully she's not disturbing you too much. Right, so instead of using the rosebud this time, I'm going to use a slightly larger stamp. What have I done with them? Okay. I might... Well, she's definitely saying something. I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to use something a bit different this time. I'm going to use... I might use this flower here, actually. Because I'm not very good at making the same thing twice. So I'm going to get myself a little acrylic stamping block, pop my stamp on there. Now for this, I'm using the clear embossing ink, because I don't want the lines of my image to be any other colour. I want to have control of that. So I'm going to ink my stamp, and I'm going to be very careful when I ink, because I would always suggest inking your stamps like this, but we have a lot of stamping to do. So I am going to go in this time round. This is going to be a clear ink, and I'm literally going to stamp this stamp randomly all over the back of my cardstock. The same as I done here with the rosebud. I can see where I am stamping. Although you are using a clear ink, what this does, it basically creates an image on there. It's quite hard to see, but you'll see it when you're stamping yourself. It creates a watermark type effect, and I think what I might do, if I can show you, if I can get the angle just right, bear with me. I might need to... It's so hard to see. Okay, you can just about see it here. You can just about see one flower there. And let me see if I can bring it closer. There you go. You can see where I've stamped. You can see that I've stamped there and here and over here and here. So you will actually see this far easier in real life than I'm showing you here. So to actually stamp this randomly over your card, it's not as tricky as it might sound. So I'm happy with that. Now what I should have done actually, and I don't know if this is going to work, Hazel's distracted me there. I should have actually put my anti-static over this. Right, let's see if this will work. I might need to start again. So I'm going to get my clear gloss. Let me put you on the big one here because you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to use my clear gloss. Now let me see if this is going to work. No, it's not going to work because I forgot to... Oh no, it might do actually. No, it's not. I forgot to put my anti-static over it. So because I put the ink on here before, I forgot to use the anti-static over the top. Right. That was Hazel distracting me. That was. I completely lost my train of thought. But what actually you can do before I get rid of this, I'll use this again. No. Ah, there you go. You can see where I've stamped my flowers. So this is where the ink has already taken the stamping. So let me try that again. False start. I can use that for something else. So I'm this time round. Anti-static. I will use that because I'll show you the difference with what happens in a minute. So let's start on a new piece of paper. I've used the anti-static over that, so I am going to stamp randomly my flower again over the background. And what I will do, actually, that one that I've just put to the other side, I will emboss that. I will, because it will prove a point, something that I'd wanted to show you anyway. So I will do the both. So you can see that I'm stamping randomly over the background. Say this is how I've done this one now, with no colour on the card to start with. You can see the watermark impression that the stamp is leaving behind. So as I say, I can see this. It's very tricky to show you on paper, but honestly, when you're doing this in person at your desk, you will see where you've stamped. So although it seems a bit odd to say, didn't you, stamp in a clear ink, but you can actually see where you are going. So this is the resist technique, how we start. So I'll put my embossing powder over the page again. Always make sure that you do this over a piece of scrap paper or something that catches your embossing powder, because you're only using what sticks to the ink. So all of this that comes out onto your embossing powder, or onto your card, sorry, can be put back. So don't be frugal when you sprinkle your embossing powder over your image. You need to have all of that there, because it will only stick to where the ink was applied. So if I show you that, there you go. You can see now where I've stamped all the way across. So I'm going to bring in my heat tool. I think my heat tool's relatively quiet, so hopefully it shouldn't disturb you too much on the camera there. Now I've been using it this morning, so it is relatively well warmed up. I'm keeping it probably about 6 inches away from the card. You don't actually want to change it onto this one. You don't want to have it too close to the paper. The temptation is there. Let me do this so you can see it. There we go. The temptation is there to actually move it closer, to actually make it heat set quicker. Now I'm starting in this corner here, so if you watch, you will see that powder go clear. What it's doing, it's actually melting that powder onto the card. Now I'm going to get some tweezers. Oh dear, that's not a good idea. Well, fingers and thumbs today, aren't I? Okay, so let me hold this. So if I do this, and perhaps might be easier if I do it behind. It makes no difference whether you heat from behind or in front, but just for you to see, it might be easier to watch that powder turn. From what you can see on the screen, it's sort of disappearing, but it's actually melting that powder and creating a nice shiny effect on the cardstock there, which I can show you in a second. So just be patient and just move that across. Once one bit has completely melted onto the card, just move your heat tool over to the next bit. There's no need to wave it around or anything like that. you do just need to be patient. And hopefully you can see that turning. So you can see all that powder has melted. Yeah, it's nice for you to see this in real time, I think, particularly if you are new to embossing. So let my camera catch up. You can see now all the powder's melted, and if I turn that to the, if I can get the angles right, you can see the flowers there. Ah, there we go. But they've got this lovely sheen in the background. Now this is a really, really lovely effect. You could just leave this like that. You don't necessarily have to add any colour. And imagine if you'd done this on a coloured cardstock, those flowers would just be a slightly darker tone. So it's a really nice way to create a background. It's so tricky to show you actually. Oh, there we go. There we are. You can see the sheen on those flowers now. So basically all the card that is sitting under them embossed images is protected from any ink that we add to the cardstock now. So the resist technique comes in where we start adding the ink. So I'm going to come in with my Rhubarb Jam and I'm going to create a nice dark background. So start adding the ink onto your cardstock and create a nice background. Now what this is going to do, you can start seeing those flowers really pop. You know what, I might just keep it on this camera. There we go. Start adding this ink. Now as the ink dries and I'm working my brush over the cardstock, you can see that I'm actually clearing the embossed area, and that embossed area stays white. So that is the resist. It's as if you've masked, or you have masked the card that's underneath. Now imagine if you're using a coloured cardstock and you embossed in the clear and then you coloured over the top of that. What would be sitting underneath the flower is the colour of the original cardstock, and that's what I wanted to show you on the other piece actually. So I will emboss this one here now. I wanted to show you the difference. So we've got some of these flowers are going to be embossed onto the orange section. Let's see if you can see this turn. Now, once you know that once the powder has embossed and has changed to a shiny surface, that is when you move your heat tool onto the next area. As soon as it goes shiny, if you linger too long on one area after it's turned shiny, then you do risk sort of scorching your embossing powder, and that shine will turn dull. So for anyone who's new to this and they wonder when they should stop embossing, it's when that surface goes shiny. I'm just going to let that cool down in for a second. It takes no time at all to cool down. So I'm just going to finish this bit here. I want a bit of an ombre effect, so I'm going to go a little bit lighter at the top here, but just enough so we can still see those colours or those flowers pop. So I'm going to keep that a little bit lighter, and you can start seeing those colours or those flowers, sorry, really pop out from the background. Now your brush will actually do a lot of the work and remove the ink from the top of the flowers, but if you want to just clean this up a little bit more and just make those flowers pop, then you can just use a cloth, preferably a dry one, just to buff over the top over that. So we have a really pretty background. Okay. Apologies for that. I think my battery's just stopped working. I thought they were fully charged. Okay. So what I want to show you then on this one, I'm going to do exactly the same here and just add ink over the top of the embossed flowers. But because some of these flowers were stamped and embossed over the orange sections of the card, the flowers will actually remain orange, and that's what I wanted to show you. So I'm going to put the pink over the top there. Now you can see here where I didn't actually use the anti-static tool, and we've got a section here, but you can see these flowers here. Let me just buff those up. So what a really nice technique is, you can still use it as a technique, but if you wanted the orange stamped flowers, you can see here that I've stamped over and I inked first, stamped the flower over the orange, and then added the pink over the top, so it will resist and keep the colour that is sitting under the stamping at the time. So that's what I wanted to show you on this one. So that's a different technique. Again, you can do it with the white as well. So whatever the colour cardstock is underneath, and if you stamp and resist and seal that colour in underneath, the resist technique will allow that to show through. Okay. So let's get to moving. I'm not sure if I'm going to get everything in today, so I just want to add a little bit more to this card. Just create a little bit more shading at the bottom here. So I'm just going to come in with a little bit of the anthracite just to add a little bit of shading. Doesn't need too much. And again, those flowers will still resist that colour. Might need a dry cloth actually. Let's bring that one in. There we go. So we can just finish this off, add a little bit of shading around the top here, just to give it a little bit of a faux border with that anthracite. It's a really nice way to shade any colour, actually. There we go. So there we have our background created like so. So to create this section here now, if you don't have any mirror card or you don't have any speciality card that matches the colour here, so use the ink. So what we do, we can use our direct to paper technique. So take a clear bit of card, whatever colour that corresponds or that you think might work with this, with the rest of your project. So direct paper technique. So I'm going to come in with the Rhubarb Jam and just add a really nice solid section onto the edge of this piece of card like this. I mean, it's very unlikely that you'll be able to find an exact match in a speciality card to actually create a nice focal point on your card. So this is a really nice way to do that. Now, while this ink is still wet, and you'll notice this time I'm not actually using the embossing ink, I'm using the matte blending, but because there is so much ink on this piece of paper now, you can see here that stays wet for a very long time. So I'm going to come in with a clear gloss and I'm going to sprinkle that all along that section there. Now this will only stick to the areas that have the ink, and you can see already that because the whole of that band was wet with ink, it sticks that ink for you. So you don't always have to use the clear embossing ink to use your powder. And again, I'm just going to come in and I'm just going to heat this. Now you'll see this one turn nicely because it's a really large area. So it will take a little bit longer, but the same principles apply. You just hold your heat tool in one area and you can start seeing this turning. So as soon as it's turned and it's become shiny, just move it slightly to the next area. I say patience is probably the best thing for this one. You don't need to wave it about too much. But once it goes, it goes pretty quick. So let's move back onto the camera so you can see it. So you can see that that's turned from that really powdery, muted colour to that high gloss shine that looks wet. It's actually not. Now, I would suggest just wait a little bit, wave it about just to let that cool down. And you can tell that by just touching the underside of the card. Never put your finger into the hot embossing powder because it will scorch it. It's very hot. But you'll be able to tell that when that has cooled down. And that wet look is now a lovely, lovely sheen. Now, I've only done a small section. If you wanted to do the whole page, go for it. And then you could perhaps matte and layer that onto there, and that would look really stunning, wouldn't it? You can see that gorgeous high shine. Right, now that I've done this, I can actually die cut this section now. So I'm going to take a die. So this is just a rectangle. Well, it's from the Nested Emeralds, but one of the smaller dies which are rectangle. So I'm going to use my smaller machine. Let me move the cloths out of the way. Find my scissors. There we are. So I'm just going to trim that so I can put that through my small machine. And die cut this now. Because it's a nice small section and I've allowed my embossing powder to dry, this won't crack. So I can run that through. Like so. When I take that off of there, I'm going to keep this because I need this little bit for later on. You can now see that we have a lovely element to go on the card that is completely color coordinated to match, but it's also got that finish, that high shine finish, which is, we're always looking for different textures to put on the cards, aren't we? So that's our background created. Again, that's two different ways to use your embossing powder already. So now to create the flower that we have here. So on here I use the rose gold, and I think what I might do this time, I'm going to use the radiant gold, just so as I can see what the difference is. And I'm sure it'll be just as pretty. That rose gold is so subtle, actually. It's so pretty. Yeah, I'm looking forward to use that in other projects. So I'm coming back to my Floral Wishes stamp set, and I'm going to use this flower here because I can use my stencils to colour it. You don't have to use stencils. I thought it might just be a nice another technique for you to see. I can use my stencils to colour it, and I can also die cut it out as well afterwards. So I am going to use a stamping block. You can use a stamping platform. So I'm going to stamp with my clear ink again this time round. Now this clear ultra slow drying ink, it does what it means when it says that is that as soon as you stamp this, there doesn't have to be a huge rush for you to get the embossing powder on there. Obviously you don't want to have to wait for minutes and minutes, but it gives you the chance to stamp this and the ink will stay tacky and take the ink, take the powder long enough for you to sort of come back to this, not immediately. So now that I've stamped that and it's clear, Again, it's that watermark effect that you'll perhaps see on there. It's really hard to show you. You perhaps just about see it there. But it does mean that I don't have to rush to put the powder on straight away, which is quite handy, because that's when you sort of can make mistakes and you can spill your powder or pick up the wrong one. So put this onto a piece of paper to catch the powder, and then I can sprinkle this on, and the areas just with the ink will catch the powder. Now you will notice that I'm totally forgetting each time to use the anti-static pad. My stamping is coming out clear, so that's fine. If you haven't handled your card too much before stamping on it, then the good chance is that you won't have any extra embossing powder stick to it, because the embossing powder is very sensitive, in as much if you'd got a piece of card and you put your fingers all over it to start with, and you was feeling it and rubbing, you know, seeing if it was clear and whatever, then that would leave a residue from your fingers onto the cards, and then your embossing powder will stick to that. So the advantage of using the anti-static is that it clears all fingerprints and invisible sticky areas from the card. If you know that you haven't handled the card too much, it doesn't matter too much whether you use the anti-static. As I say, it's something I forget to do a lot of the time. Not necessarily the best habit, but I can just about get away with it now. I've added I'm still getting used to these colours, the radiant gold now onto here, so I can emboss this. And again, I need some tweezers. So I'm just keeping my heat gun still. You know, if I can, can we show you that? Really hard to catch that light. You can perhaps just about see it there. No, you can't. Now, if I hold it there and then emboss, you might be able to just see that turn. So once, there you go. There you are, there you go. You can see it melt and you can see that turn. Perfect. So that now is ready. You don't want to over egg it. As soon as it turns shiny like that, that's when you stop your heating. That is gorgeous. And again, very different to the rose gold that we've got there as well. Just as pretty. Right, what we can do now is very quickly, I'm going to colour this with the stencils. So again, there's lots of techniques going on here, and it just shows you how all of these different parts of these products mix and match. So we have the Floral Wishes layering stencils. Now, I am only interested in colouring the flower, obviously. So I have my whole set of stencils here. I don't need to use stencil 1 and I don't need to use stencil 2 because there is no floral elements on there. So we come in with stencil 3 and we can line that up underneath our image. Okay, so we can line up those embossed areas within the stencil before popping that onto our pegs, and just make sure that that hasn't shifted too much. So now we are clear to colour. So I'm going to use the orange, so that's a nice contrast to the back of the card. So I'm going to do this really quickly. So this is the orange sunrise. No, it's not, it's early sunrise, sorry. That is orange. Okay, so that's stencil 3. Then we can come in with stencil 4. So that's the internal area. So I'm going to, excuse me, I'm going to do that just a little bit lighter. Now I am stenciling and colouring over the embossing powder. Excuse me, the brushes aren't damaging that powder at all. So stencil number 5. So this is that area. So I'm going to go a little bit darker. And I'm just going to add a bit of highlight to that with a little bit of anthracite, just to change that tone of those. I'm only using the ink that's on this brush. I'm not, you'll notice I haven't actually picked up any extra ink. So that just gives that slightly different tone. Then stencil 6, the last stencil, I'm going to come in with a little bit of the Rhubarb Jam. So a little bit of the pink, just to change the tone of the flower and tie it in really nicely with the rest of the background. Also come in with a smaller brush and just put a little bit of pink around the outside. Again, the embossing powder is sitting really nicely there. The brushes aren't disturbing it at all. So a little bit of pink around the outside, not too much. So we have our flower coloured. Comes together really, really quickly, and it's really nice to be able to show you that you can just pick out areas of the stencil. You don't have to stencil the whole image. So we can move that away, and now we can go to our Floral Wishes die set here. We have an awful lot of dies in here, and we can just cut out the flower. So before I do that, actually, I'm just going to trim this down so it can fit through my machine. Like so. And then we can layer the die over the top. Again, you have the embossed lines to act as a guide when lining up your die here. So just take that in place. And we can cut that out. Okay, so before I show you that, what I want to do, remember this little piece, remember this little piece that I kept here of the rhubarb jam that is that wet look. Yeah, there you can see it there. I'm going to use that, and I'm going to use there's a die in this Floral Wishes set that cuts out this center area of the flower. So I'm going to I'm going to use that. It's a nice tiny little die. I'm just going to use that on that last little area of the rhubarb jam. It saves wasting it, and it will finish off the flower just perfectly, and you'll see how in just a second. So that's my die cutting done. So you can see here that we have that lovely flower coloured with the stencil, but it has the beautiful detailed outlining with the embossed gold there, that radiant gold, and it's a gorgeous gold. Actually, Lisa's chosen perfectly well. I remember her saying on the live when she introduced the embossing powders that she's very fussy with her golds, and I am too, and we are clearly on the same wavelength, because this is exactly the colour that I would have chosen. So I've taken this little centre area, and you can see on the flower here that you have it matches this section. So if we pop that into the centre of the flower there, it finishes that flower off perfectly, and it also gives it that, just elevates it that little bit, and just making that the center of the flower just that tiny bit shiny, which ties it into the background that we have there. So it's these little details that you can really use to bring these cards to life and just tie everything in all together. So I can if I glue that onto the centre of the flower. And again, it's a different way to use your embossing powder. Every element, as I said, is embossed in different ways, different techniques. And then we can bring our card together, and we have our image, we have our flower. You can see that there's an awful lot of shine, there's an awful lot of interest going on there. We have our little sentiment, and that was done in exactly the same way as I stamped the flower. So just with the, let me show you, do I have a piece big enough? Yes, I do. I have a piece of card. Now it would be your choice. You'll get the same effect. You can either stamp this with a clear embossing and use the black embossing powder, or you can stamp it in black ink and emboss it with clear powder. You will get the same result both ways. So I think what I might do, this one I stamped with black ink and used clear powder. So I think what I might do this time, oh, I am all fingers and thumbs. Right, let me clean the stamp. I think I've got the time. So I'm just going to use a small pad. Okay. So I have this smaller stamp here with love. One of my favourites. I like it because it's a nice solid background, and it sort of really makes a nice statement on the card. So I am going to stamp it with clear powder. No, sorry, clear ink. Let's use my anti-static on it this time around. Stamp the image. You can see that that's on there. Again, it's that watermarked look, so you don't need to worry about ever losing your image once you've stamped it with the clear ink. So this time I'm going to use the black powder. Tap it off, and you can see already that even that small detail has been picked out. So that's the quality of the stamp, giving us a nice impression, but it's also the quality of the embossing powder. The black embossing powder is fine enough to still give you that fine detail that's stamped. Not all embossing powders are made the same. So of course, what Lisa's chosen, and we know that WOW powders have that quality. So you can still get that fine detail, which is actually quite something in this particular style of stamp, where the artwork or the words are engraved within the stamp. So we just wait for that to turn. And again, the same as using clear powder or gold powder, all you need to do is wait for, if you can do that from underneath, you need to wait for that black powder to turn shiny. Hopefully you can see this. It's quite tricky, but if I do that, and just as that powder gets heated, you can see that it goes shiny all the way along until there, it's done. And you can see the detail that we have there. So this one is stamped with black, embossed with clear. This is stamped clear, embossed with black. So you get the same result either way. And then you can, of course, just cut this out. Wait till it's perfectly dry, because if you put your fingers in the embossing powder, for one, it will be incredibly hot, and it's not recommended you do that, but you will leave an impression of your finger mark in the powder as well, so you don't want to be able to do that. So that is that card put together with every detail of that card has been embossed, and it really does stand out. It really does stand out, especially when the light catches it. So it'll be a really super special card. You can see there all of those elements, and because you've used the same ink all the way across and used the clear in powder to create the shiny elements, the whole thing is cohesive and really works well. So that's a really nice project just for you to try lots of different techniques. Now, what's the time? We have 10 minutes. Let's see if I can do another quick one with the Muse Maker stamps for you again, just because you're here for an hour, and I should be able to get this done for you and just show you a couple more different techniques. So same 3 colours. I'm using the same colours again just because they're here. So a bit of ink smooshing. So put some ink on my mat, even the anthracite. So don't worry about that being black. I think the anthracite is such a lovely colour to use. Put plenty of ink on. Pick up that ink on your card. Oh, we've gone more black this time, but that's fine. The thing with this technique, it looks different every single time you do it. But I think what I might do, just dab that away. There we are. Then it doesn't look quite so scary, does it? So we have our background. The anthracite ink, actually, when you put water on it, it really does separate into its colours, and it takes on that bluey green property as well. So what I'm going to do, I am just going to dry this quickly. Excuse me, because to add any more ink over the top of this, or to add some stamping, and also definitely embossing powder, you do need to work with a dry surface. Right, because I dabbed a lot of the moisture away from that, that dried pretty quick. So I'm going to bring in 2 stamp sets, the Fractured Foliage and the Cracked Terrain. I'm going to create the background first. So with these, with the Cracked Terrain here, I'm going to take this one. I think this is definitely one of my most reached for sets, but I've been pretty busy over the last week, 10 days, to be honest. I haven't had a huge amount of time to play, so I'm actually really looking forward to sitting down and getting all these back out again and get stamping again. It's I just really enjoy it. I just can't thank Lisa enough for bringing out stamps. Again, it's, yeah, just really enjoy this stamping. So I do like to get messy. Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm not thinking too much about this. I'm just going to ink up this stamp and stamp that into the centre. You can see this one that I'm working towards here. We have that there. So all we are doing really is just creating a background. I'm doing it exactly the same way as I've done here. But because the background has turned out different, it's going to look totally different this time around, which I like, you know, which is great fun. I never like making the same thing twice. So I'm going to stamp this part again in orange in a slightly different colour. So, and just move that down a little bit so we have that lovely background, which in itself just looks fab, doesn't it? Okay, I won't clean that just yet. Then I'm going to use this stamp here. So this is a lovely dotty one as well, really nice to just create texture into the background. And I'm going to stamp that with the anthracite. Now, before I do that, I am going to add my anti-static over, because I do want to add a little bit of embossing. So again, I'm going to ink this up and I'm going to stamp this just about there, and secondary stamp just there. So we have that background going on. Now we are using matte blending inks, so these aren't necessarily designed for embossing, so the ink will dry pretty quick. So if you are stamping with matte blending and you want to emboss them, then I would say you need to put the embossing powder on pretty quick, unlike using the embossing pad. I know I've left this probably a bit too long, and only a certain amount of this powder now will stick to it, but that is the look that I want. I want this to be quite rustic, rough and ready. So I've put the powder on there. I've just sprinkled, as you saw, the radiant gold over that black embossing. Some of it is stuck, some of it hasn't. Some areas, you know, it's quite incomplete, but because of the nature of the background that I'm creating this time round, that is the look that I'm after. So we are creating a background, so we're not necessarily wanting perfect embossing techniques each time, but I do want to add just a little bit of gold to this background here. Because I put the anti-static pad on before I stamp those dots, that embossing powder won't stick to the orange and the pink stamping that I done. If you want to have that embossed, then I would say don't put the anti-static pad over, and you just see where that gold sticks and takes. And say for this type of rustic background, I suppose you want to call it, then that would be perfect. But just play. So if I just show you now, if I turn that, oh, there we go. We have a little bit of gold. Not all of it was taken. There's still some of these black areas here that didn't take the powder, but that's absolutely fine. That's just the look that I want. What it has done is just add a little bit of interest to that card there. Now the other way that you can add embossing powder, and especially on this sort of style of card that you're doing, is the direct paper technique. And you can take your pad and just add some areas around the outside, as if you were sort of aging it with a coloured ink pad. You can do this with your clear powder, and then sorry, your clear ink, and then you can add some powder. So I'm going to go with the, am I going to go with that? No, I'm going to go with the gold again. So with the radiant gold, so you'll be able to see this. So if I just add the powder to all around the outside, to the areas that I added the ink, you will see where the powder sticks. This is just going to give us like an aged look with the gold around the outside. It's a really, really lovely technique, especially when you're using and creating backgrounds with that go with your Muse Maker. But actually, do you know what? They can go with any background that you're creating. If you've done a particularly I don't know, say a vintage style or vintage coloured layered stencil image, and you just want a little bit of something around the outside, then sort of age it with your clear powder around the outside, and then we can heat emboss. So you can see actually here, around here, where some of the ink, some of the powder has stuck. I didn't want much more than this. And all you do, you just go round and you just heat it the same way as you would as if you were heating an image. So I'm just going to go around and do that. Okay, it's so hard to show you. You can just be patient. You will see the areas that are turning, and I'll show you in a second. It gives you a really, really lovely, almost gold gilt look around the outside. Now I'm doing this in gold, but obviously you can do it in any colour of powder that you have. I'm just heating that, just waiting for that to turn. As soon as it's turned, then it stops. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to replace my battery in that other camera there, because this one deals with close-ups a lot better. Oh, bear with me. There we go. It's working again. Let's zoom in so you can see. Now, can you see that gilt edge that I've put all around the outside here? It's really subtle, but do you know what? Sometimes it's just what you need to finish that off. So just to finish this off now, just to give this a focal point, and actually I can show you the gold that's on there too. How pretty is that? I just love that. And the fact that it's not all the way around, it just looks really, really aged. I really, really like that. Okay, right. So now I'm going to use the fractured foliage. So this image here, I'm going to stamp this with the clear ink because I do want this to be bold. I want this to be stamped and embossed properly, unlike everything else that we've done here, which is just sort of accessorizing this main image. So I've really inked that up really well. I'm going to stamp that on there. Now obviously it's going to be clear, so you're not going to see the image stamped. And because we're stamping over a lot of colours, lots of other background images, what I will do, I'm going to use one of the bolder embossing powders to emboss this, so it really does stand proud, like this one here. Okay, so for that I'm going to use the Embedded Rust. And again, I've got that little bit of open time because the embossing ink is slow drying. Now this Embedded Rust really has a lot of texture to it. You have a lot of grains, then you have some finer grains in this too. So this technique that I done around the outside with the gold would be perfect for this, because the areas with really high concentration of the ink will really stick those larger particles in this powder. So I'm just going to add a little bit more because I missed that there. So there we go. You can see we have the full image there. And if you just look, you can see the different size particles in this powder. Now this will be a whole different technique and a whole video on itself using this type of powder, and the verdigris as well, because that has various different colors and properties to it as well. You can use it as a regular embossing powder, absolutely no problem, but there will be extra techniques that you can do with that. So I'm going to heat this now, and then just to show you the difference in this one, and then I'll be done. So as I say, if I can show you this turn. You have to be patient initially. Really hard to show you. I'm just trying, oh there we are. I'm just trying to catch the light. So if you watch the top of the flowers there, hopefully you'll see that turn. Perhaps I'll do it that way. So once it's turned shiny, there you go, you can see it turn there. Once it's turned shiny, then move the heat to the next area until it's all done. And there you can see we have lots of different layers on there, and that can, with just a sentiment, I probably haven't got the most appropriate sentiment, but you can just pop one onto the card, onto a blank card blank, and that really just frames and finishes off that card. Now a lot more could be done to that, a lot more different layers and layering up of different decoupaging and using the 3D foam pads, but you get essentially you get the way that the embossing powder works. So there was a lot involved in that today. Thank you so much for staying with me. I hope it's useful. It's really useful that these videos stay online on YouTube for you to come back to, because you can cherry pick and you can stop and start if you just need to hear those little tips again. But there is so much that you can do with your embossing powders. So have fun with them. I really enjoy them. I really, really do. You don't need to be scared of them at all. I shall be using them again for sure. But I shall leave that with you there, State. Apologies, I haven't looked at any of your comments at all. I've just oh, there's Lisa. Oh, just well, I didn't see that. The creative company have arrived. Oh, she's had an order in. Oh, they'll be busy. They'll be busy in the shop. Yeah, I really enjoy it. So I hope you've enjoyed that just as much. If you do have any questions or need a little bit of help, then pop them into the group so we can get you embossing, so you can make the most of these lovely things. I will go through and read all of your comments now. Sorry, I got so engrossed into what I was doing. I do apologise. But I know there's a couple of design team people here if you had questions, and looks like Lisa is around or was around as well. So hopefully all your questions have been answered. But thanks so much for staying with me this afternoon. I shall see you all again next week. Take care.